So it's time to continue my series of Match Retro reviews with Season 3, Episode 1, The General Flipped at Dawn. So that's right, we're finally moving on to Season 3, and this episode features Harry Morgan. But wait, Harry Morgan doesn't start playing Conaparto until Season 4. What's going on? Simple. He's guest starring as the character General Steele. So this is actually the only episode where Harry Morgan, McLean, Stevenson, and Wayne Rogers are all on an episode of MASH. Granted, Harry Morgan's playing a different character, so that's how he gets to work. So, this episode basically, it's actually fairly, when you think about it, a run-of-the-mill episode. It does not really reintroduce the characters in the way that Season 2, Episode 1 did. Probably that's because things are pretty well established. MASH is in a new time slot, so you think that would make them decide. But I think they've really started finding their footing in terms of what they want the show to be. I do think that's part of the reason why this episode doesn't really feel like an introduction episode. Doesn't feel like we need to recap who the characters are. We'll just jump right into one of the regular adventures, which tells me that the writers and directors behind the scenes don't feel a need anymore to essentially re-establish the status quo. They now have trust that the audience will just know that stuff. But the episode does threaten the status quo because General Steele, he's apparently in charge of a certain section of Korea, and basically he wants to institute, i.e. everyone's following the regulations to the letter. He decides he's going to headquarter at the 407 for a week to observe, and he decides they are going to need to move closer to the front. And that's basically what's going on, and we're watching everyone at the match deal with it. Frank is like, he's kind of forward, because he likes military bearing and all that, but he really isn't. Henry's like, what can I do? And Chopper and Hawkeye are just being themselves. So kind of like a normal episode, because Henry's attitude to command is, what can I do? When especially stuff comes up from up above, he does not feel like he can push back against, improper stuff. And doing all this too, Hawkeye has a patient he's recovering, but his recovery is not going that great. We don't get much detail about it, but that point plays a very important role in the story because General Steele decides they're going to move the 477, finds the location, and he wants to use a chopper to observe it. Of course, Hawkeye has his patient on the chopper to be sent to Seoul for better medical care. So, and that leads to a court-martial because Hawkeye tells the chopper to go against General Steele's orders. And then General Steele shows how crazy he is. Basically, it's been made clear throughout the episode that he's crazy. Weird one-liners and things like that. When during General Steele inspecting the troops, when Klinger comes up, General Steele doesn't bat an eye. I think he mistakes Klinger for his wife. That's the first sign that General Steele is not necessarily all there. Not to mention a few other things like, just weird comments that he made during the inspection. Like, he pointed out Frank's nose there. Like, who pays that much attention? Now, I don't know how it's like in the army for real, but I feel like that's maybe a little too much detail. He tells Margaret to, gut in, chest out, and I've always thought that was a bit weird. Like, yes, that's a very common thing to say in the military, but remember, Margaret's not a guy. No, so what is General Steele suggesting with that scene? Does he even know what he's suggesting with that? And I think the writers definitely knew, but does the character in universe know? And if he doesn't, that's a sign that he's a bit loony. And even if he's not, that's a sign that he's probably not, he's still a bit loony, you could say. And there's another line that supports that he holds outdated views because there's a scene where he refers to Hannibal from Carthage. By the way, check out Oversimplified The Punic Wars. Great, really fun. But that's side tangent there. But refers to Hannibal, and I quote, a darky, unquote. And you don't even like saying that because that's very outdated language to refer to people of African descent in the United States. Very outdated language. And also, back then, during the Punic Wars, the concepts of race didn't exist as we have them nowadays. I'm just saying. Hannibal's problem to the Romans was he was a Carthaginian and not a Roman. That was the Romans' problem with him, and the fact that he was handing their asses until, Scipio the Younger decided to start fighting for them. And seriously, go try to oversimplify the Punic War. Who knows when the third one's going to come up? He's got the first two covered. But anyhow, that's a side tangent. The person in the formation he treats the best is actually Farr's and McKay, where the only thing, he repeats the saying, there's no atheists in the foxholes, which, okay, maybe a bit weird to say in an inspection, but probably the most normal. And then asks for a little bit more of a shine on the cross. Again, not maybe the best thing, but the most normal interaction. Then Radar points out, here's Radar's last name, O'Reilly, and says the Indians are rotten. The Irish were rotten Indian fighters, that's what he said. And then asks Radar where he's from. Radar responds, and then General Stiers like, no talking ranks, but you just asked him a question. This showing that he's not all there. Then he goes on to inspect, and that's when Klingo comes up. I also want to mention, this is more of a side tangent, but there's a soldier behind Radar who has a turban. So I did a little research on Indians serving in the Korean War, and there was the 60th Parachute Field Ambulance, which was an Indian Army unit that served in Korea with a mobile field hospital. So why would one of the members be at MASH? Cultural exchange, medical exchange, who knows what's going on? Maybe, just a layover on the way to wherever his unit is actually stationed. Could also just be a regular Indian Army infantry soldier, we don't know. But I decided to do that, a little bit of research for that historical context. Did they intend that? I have no idea. Happy coincidence? Probably for sure. But still, just a fun little background detail that I didn't pick up until this rewatch. Let's see. That covers most of it until we get to the court-martial scene. Well, the colonel who's the MP who's doing the preliminary hearing, it's more of a preliminary hearing than for a court-martial, starts to read the charges, who the charges for, but General Stiers cuts in, cut to the charges, like procedure. You were all about procedure earlier, proper uniforms and all that, and so the charges are read against Hawkeye, and then so while General Stiers does make it clear to the chopper pilot, warned Officer Williams that he has no charges against him because he was just following orders, just to recount, but before that to do a musical number. And that's really starts to show that he's not all there. We had already known that, but this was showing to somebody else outside the 407 that this guy's a bit nuts. And then he starts singing Mississippi Mud with the racist lyrics. Yeah. Meanwhile, in the end scene where they find out that General Stiers has been promoted up. Yeah, he's been basically filled upwards so they could get him out of Korea and gave him more responsibility where he probably will cause less harm. Sad that sometimes happens. And Frank is like, he wasn't that crazy or that. And then Hawkeye, Trapper, and Henry begin singing Mississippi Mud, but the non-racist lyrics. So, which I think is a very deliberate choice. They saw in those two racist lines, and probably also that sexist line from Margaret for General Stiers, to show that not only is he loopy, crazy, but he's also holds some pretty outdated views as well. Well, I should say outdated definitely nowadays, definitely on the outs when the show was made, and beginning to go on the outs when the show was set. But MASH had always taken a way more progressive stance when it comes to racial depictions than the 50s actually were. Much more progressive stance there. Or I should also mention, Warrant Officer Williams was an African American too, so that's just adds to the racism of General Stiers. There's also another scene too that just shows how General Stiers is not fit for command at all. He, tongue depressors. Why? Why does he want the unit to resave them, to eliminate waste? Come on. And then when he's surveying the site, he wants Henry and Frank to salute him, but Henry and Frank know that they're snipers, so we don't salute. Even Frank knew that. And, yeah. So General Stiers is this crazy character. But there's also another scene, too, where Henry's like, what can I do? I have my orders. And he can't violate an order unless somebody orders him, too. But you're wrong, Henry. You are wrong in that scene. But that shows Henry's character. He does not like making unnecessary waves. But you can disobey an order if it's illegal, if it's unconstitutional. Especially nowadays, but even back in the 50s. Soldiers, civilians, law enforcement alike are under no obligation to follow an illegal and unconstitutional order. I would also say a morally wrong order should also not be followed as well. But that's very fitting in Henry's character where he doesn't want to make waves. Meanwhile, Trapper and Hawkeye, they don't mind making waves. They don't mind sticking their noses at authority, especially authority that's in the wrong. Was this all intentional? Probably not. But they wanted to show an episode where the characters dealt with a crazy general and all the characters respond according to their appropriate characterizations. Henry doesn't want to make waves. Frank wants to suck up. Hawkeye and Trapper, they just want to, do their job, be good doctors, and thumb their nose at unjust, unworthy authority. That's who they are. They were all in character for this episode. I wish they gave Margaret more to do in this episode, but they didn't. She apparently only had one line, and I don't even remember it. They failed Margaret in this episode, in my opinion, by not showing how her responses really were. And that's a problem, but the episode's already made, the show is done. They do get better. They do get way better with Margaret's character. But we got a couple more seasons to go. But that's all I got for this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you, always.